I welcome you all to the module 9 of this course. Module 9 is about positive interpersonal relationships. So, in this module we are talking about the different aspects of positive relationships and how it contributes to well-being. So, today's lecture is lecture number 23 and it is titled as positive relationship and social support. So, we will talk about some of the basic aspects of positive relationships and the different factors that contribute to that positive relationships. So, this is the first lecture of this module and overall this is lecture number 23. So, before we talk about today's lecture, let me give you a brief recap of the last lecture, which is lecture number 22. This was part of the earlier module where we talked about the developmental changes in prosocial thoughts and actions, how prosocial behavior changes, what are the different developmental changes that happens in a child as the age progresses. So, we talked about the different aspects to it in terms of thoughts and actions. We also looked at how social learning contributes to prosocial behavior and thought processes, and at the end we talked about the different strategies and intervention for promoting prosocial behavior and kindness. So, we discussed the various factors that can facilitate prosocial behavior, which can be used as a intervention strategies and so on. So, these are a few things that we discussed in the last lecture. So, today's lecture will cover some of the key concepts, which includes we will talk about positive relationship and social support. We will also talk about mechanisms of social support and well-being. We will talk about some of the other aspects that contribute to positive relationships, which includes capitalization, gratitude and love. So, these are some of the things that we will discuss in today's lecture. So, let us start today's lecture. Now, when we talk about interpersonal relationships in terms of psychological research, it is a relatively young field. However, some significant progress has already been made in this context, where we now understand a lot of things, lot of empirical findings associated with the various aspects of relationship and how it influences our life, particularly in the context of well-being, mental health and so on. A lot of research actually also focused on negative processes that is related to relationships and detrimental effects in poor quality relationship. So, a lot of research are also available in the context of when there is a poor relationships, when there is a social isolation, how it leads to various kinds of mental health problems and in terms of detrimental impacts on well-being and so on. However, particularly in the context of positive psychology, the more recent shift has focused on positive processes in relationship. What are the positive things that can contribute to positive relationships? So, in this particular module and in this lecture also, we will be focusing on different factors that promote high quality relationships and role that factors plays in terms of health and well-being. Now, if you look at empirical literature or research findings, a lot of research actually consistently demonstrated that when you talk about relationship, it plays very important role in both physical health and well-being. Because we are social animal, our relationship with other people plays very important role in our emotional life, in our mental health, in our overall physical health, mental health, well-being and so on. These aspects continuously impacts us all the time from morning till we sleep and so on. So, epidemiological studies have shown that social isolation significantly increases risk of all cause mortality. A lot of research shows people who has less social support system and experiences more social isolation, such people actually their risk for mortality actually increases, they die earlier. A lot of actually research actually indicates very clearly. While poor quality relationships or lack of social ties are linked to impaired cardiovascular, immune and endocrine system functioning. So, that can actually impact social isolation and lack of social positive relationships can lead to a lot of physiological impact also, like in terms of impaired cardiovascular system, decrease of immune system and there are problems with the endocrine system and so on. So, there are very clear cut empirical evidences available, which shows the social isolation and lack of positive relationship could lead to various kinds of detrimental impact on physical health, mental health as even in mortality also. It increases the probability of early death and so on. Also, positive close relationships are strongly associated with happiness and life satisfaction. So, the other aspect of the other side of the coin is also true, which says that when people have more positive relationship, better social support system, it contributes to higher happiness and life satisfaction. Now, these findings are not just limited to academic research, even if you ask people in general, layman people also, public also recognizes that importance of close relationships often they cite them as the most meaningful aspect of their life. Even if you ask people randomly, they will say that one of the main important factors that contributes to the meaning to their life or happiness to their life, mostly it will come from the relationship aspects. So, both empirical evidence and everyday experience clearly indicates the importance of stable positive relationships for health and well-being, as well as the necessity of understanding how the human mind evolved to develop and maintain these connections. So, these are some of the research which clearly indicates, and there are so many such evidences are available, which clearly indicates the importance of positive relationship in human life, particularly in terms of increasing quality of life. So, in the context of positive relationship, in this lecture, we will be focusing on some key components or facilitators in positive relationship. Means these factors can contribute to or facilitate positive relationships, enhance the quality of our life in terms of making our relationships much better with other people around us. So, three particular aspects we will be talking about in today's lecture. One is social support, second is capitalization, and the third one is the concept of love. So, let us look into each of them in little bit details. So, when we talk about social support, so social support is something that is very much evident in everyone's life. We give support, we receive support from other people around us, particularly the significant people around us. So, it includes both tangible and emotional support during stressful time or in general time also, which is a very key mechanism linking health and well-being. So, social support, it includes supporting in terms of giving something tangible, or it may also include giving emotional support and so on. Now, the definition and measurement of social support varies across the discipline. Within the discipline also people have various conceptualization about it. So, we will kind of try to focus on broad definition and focus only more on the impact and so on. So, if you look at human beings, we already discussed that we are social animals. So, we are programmed to bond with other people. In normal circumstances, we all live in society, in family and so on, in communities. So, we keep connecting with other people and we are programmed to bond with other people. So, this is something an unavoidable and a kind of important aspect of human life. So, this is a fundamental need. There is a need also to bond with other people, which does not fade with age. It is something, a constant thing that that prevails in our life from birth to death. It does not diminish with the progress of age, and it has a profound implications for our mental and physical health, which we have also looked into some of the literature. It impacts us very strongly emotionally, physically also. Now, when we talk about social support, it can be very broadly thought as the soothing impact of friends, family and acquaintances. So, the kind of support that we get from close people around us. So, it has a soothing impact when we get support from other people. So, it helps you or it releases your stress and so on. So, there is a soothing impact when you get support from other people, particularly friends, family and acquaintances. So, that is broadly we can call it as a social support system, the kind of support that we get from other people around us. It could be tangible support, it could be emotional support and so on. So, the need for a strong social relationship with other is a very powerful fundamental motivation. So, this need for social relationship and support is a very powerful motivation within all of us, and that motivates us to connect with other people. It helps us to establish network of close caring individuals who can provide social support in times of distress, sorrow and fear. That plays very important role, particularly when we experience crisis in life and so on. So, this social support is particularly very important personal resource because it helps provide access to further resources beyond those already we have. Why it is important, particularly when dealing with crisis situation or coping with the difficult times, adversities of life, challenges of life, Uh, the main reason is one individual as a person, he has only a limited resources to deal with a situation, but when you get support from other people, your resources increases. Now, you have resources of 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Now, you can manage a situation in a much better way because you have more resources from other people. Alone, you may not be able to do many things in your life. We could do many things in our life because of the support of other people, because when we get support, social support, the resources of other people gets added to us. So, our resources increases, our capacity increases, our ability increases, which probably you could not do alone. So, that is what social support does in terms of particularly in the crisis situation. So, people get several sources from which they get support. It may include parents, friends, relatives, loved ones. Sometimes people say pets can also be a source of support for many people. Pets, whatever we take, some animal pets like cats, dogs and so on, especially in people who are not, especially in the modern living where the connection or the social ties are not so strong, where people find it difficult to connect with other people. Many times people also get lot of emotional support from pets. When you have a pet, you get lot of some kind of emotional exchange with them, which can also help people. So, this whole keeping pets and so on can also act as a social support, particularly the emotional support and so on. So, there are different forms of social support, the different categories or different types of social support that we get from other people. It can take different forms. So, these are some of the different forms that are prominently we see in terms of social exchanges. One is tangible support, where material support such as services, financial or goods. So, when people support you with some services or they give you some goods or financial help and so on. So, basically it is a very tangible thing. You can say somebody gave me something which is very tangible, those are called tangible supports. So, many times people require tangible support, and if they get it from other people, that we can call as a tangible social support. Another form of support that people get is called informational support, which basically means when we get support in terms of information, advice, suggestion during the need or whenever there is a crisis situation. So, sometimes you may not have all the information to deal with the situation. So, some of your friends or other people, whoever your acquaintances, may give you some information, advice, suggestion how to go about in a particular situation. So, that is also an important support, because you do not have the information and understanding about a situation, someone else may help you in that situation. So, that is called informational support. Another very prominent emotional support which plays very important role in our life is called emotional support. So, basically in terms of words or action that make or people or person feels cared about, understood and affirmed. So, emotional support may include empathy, caring, love and trust and so on. So, whenever someone faces some difficult situations or something, someone may give emotional support in terms of listening to them, understanding their situations, and just to make the other person feel cared, understood, affirmed, validated and so on. So, those are called emotional support. There is another form of support which may include other forms of support, but it is called invisible support. So, what happens here? So, when somebody receives help from others, but is unaware of it. So, this kind of help is most likely to benefit recipient. So, you receive help from someone, but you do not know who has given you that help. So, like someone helping you anonymously. So, that is called invisible support. So, this kind of support are also benefit people significantly, as this kind of support may not include any kind of cost, because you do not know who is the person and you may not need to return the favor and so on, because the person who gave support is an invisible anonymous person. So, that could be also another kind of support which may include other types of support, but the person who is giving support, you may not be aware of his identity and so on. So, that is called invisible support. So, people can experience all these kinds of social support in their life, and they can all be helpful, but which type of support influences us, there can be different factors associated with that. Now, so just as we sometimes need different types of support, so we may need different types of support in the different times or different types of situations. Some people are better at providing one kind of support than another. So, in our social network, probably some people are good at giving emotional support, some people may be good at giving informational support, some people may be good at giving tangible support. So, the different people may have different resources, based on that they can provide those support, and we may also require different types of support in the different situations of our life. So, social support is most beneficial when there is a match between what you need and what you receive from the support network. So, that is the best support system when you need, if the support given to you and the need that you have matches with each other. For example, if you need tangible support, if someone gives you tangible support, let us say you need financial support and somebody gives you money, then there is a match. Now, let us say you need financial support and somebody is giving you emotional support, then there is no match. It may not be really relieve you from the stressful situations. So, the best support we get only when there is a match between the need and the what recipient is giving to you or what the other person is giving to you. So, this is called matching hypothesis. So, when a person needs, for example, tangible support, providing emotional support may not be very helpful and the vice versa and so on. So, this is something about the different types of support system that we get. Now, people also talk about or conceptualize social support in terms of some other dimensions also. For example, we can talk about social support in terms of structural support, which basically means it refers to number of social ties or their interconnectedness or the density that an individual reports. So, when we talk about structural support, we are talking about the number of ties or number of people from which you can expect support system. So, that number determines your structural support system and how they are, what is the density of the then individual reports. So, if I ask somebody how many number of people you can count on, let us say if you have a crisis and so on. So, that will determine the structural support. There is then another aspect to social support which is called as enacted or received support, which basically means it involves specific support transactions or actual assistance provided or received in response to a stressor. So, when enacted support means the actual support that you get whenever you are in a crisis situation or a stressful situation. So, specific support transaction that you actually get or actual help that you get or receive when you have a stressful situation, that is called as a received support or enacted support. People also talk about social support in terms of called perceived support. Here it relates to the belief that others will provide help if needed. So, what is your perception about what kind of support system you are likely to get when you are in a difficult situation? So, what is your perception? So, you may not get actual support in terms of what you get is enacted support, but people also may have something in their mind. If I am in a crisis situation, I can count on let us say 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, whatever it is. What is their perception? Do they think their support system is good enough or not? So, that perceived support system is something what is in the mind of the person, what is their perception about others likely to help them and so on. So, these are some of the dimension in which we can also talk about social support. So, this dimension kind of indicates multifaceted nature of social support system which can influence us and so on. So, let us look into some of the empirical literature about these different aspects of social support and how it influences us. So, this outcome of social support can vary depending on how this support is conceptualized, perceived and support enacted. So, what kind of support system you get, what kind of there can be different factors which influence the outcome of social support on individuals. It is not necessary that just getting social support will positively influence a person. There may be many other things involved in it. For example, research shows that perceived support means what is the perception of the person that he or she may have the support system that the person thinks that the person has. So, it is in the mind. So, this perceived support, it is mostly a belief that supportive others are available in terms of need. So, you believe that there are some numbers or whatever number that you have are available in the time of need. So, that is your perception. Whether you actually get it or not, that is the enacted support. But perception is about just your belief system that how many people you can count on in terms of when there is a need arises. Now, research shows that this perceived support is very important predictor, or it consistently linked to positive health and well-being outcomes. So, if you have a perceived higher support system, if you think there are many people around you who will support you, or there are people around you who can support during the time of crisis. So, that perception plays very important role in terms of contributing to positive health and well-being. So, that plays very important role. This perception is very important. For instance, research shows that it reduces anxiety and depression during stress, during a difficult situation. It improves adjustment to diseases and lowers heart rate and blood pressure during stressful task, because you think you can count on somebody and somebody will help you and so on. So, your stress level decreases and so on. So, perceived support plays very important role in terms of well-being and health indicators. Now, when you look at enacted support, actual support that you get in terms of exchange with other people, research often shows there is not much significant benefit or even negative outcome sometimes of enacted support. When you actually get some support from another individual, it may not have always positive impact on you. Sometimes it may not have any impact, neither positive nor negative. Sometimes it may even have a negative impact on the individual who is receiving the support. Now, this is like a little bit counterintuitive. Now, to make sense of that, we generally say social support is good for other things, but when people actually get support in many situations, this may not actually have a significant positive impact on other people. What could be the reason behind it? Let us see. So, research suggests that enacted support may carry costs such as lowering self-esteem, highlighting incompetence or creating feelings of indebtedness. So, when you get actual support from someone, especially maybe not somebody very close and so on, so there is a cost involved in it. So, there is an expectation that you have to return something, or it may lower some people's self-esteem also, that you could not do something, that you need helps of someone. So, in certain situation people also feel lowered self-esteem when they actually get enacted support. Sometimes people feel like they feel incompetent to deal with the situation. So, support is coming in that situation. So, that feeling of incompetence could also be experienced in certain situations, or sometimes people feel feelings of indebtedness, that you become like there is a sense of debt that is there to repay to someone because somebody has helped and so on. So, this can be some of the reasons in certain situation enacted support may not have positive impact in terms of how it impacts psychologically. For example, in some research like Bolger and colleagues found that invisible support, as we discussed, invisible support means you are not aware who is giving you support. So, where unaware of the receiving support led to better outcomes compared to visible support when you know someone is giving. So, invisible support, why it led to better outcomes? Because there is no cost involved, you do not know who is giving you. So, all this pressure and psychological aspects, or the feeling of indebtedness and other things could be much less in case of invisible support, because you do not know who is the person giving you support and so on. So, research shows that in certain cases of enacted support may not have much positive impact, but perceived support plays very important role and positive role in terms of impact on mental health and well-being. Now, how this social supports actually influences well-being? In general, social support contributes positively to well-being and so on. Obviously, the dynamics may differ on the situation also, but let us look at what is the possible mechanisms behind this relationship, why social support increases well-being. So, in terms of understanding that, there are two possible hypotheses or models available. Cohen and Wills identified two models linking social support and well-being. One is called main effects model and another is called buffering model. This model actually, or hypothesis, sometimes people call it as a hypothesis, can explain this relationship between social support and well-being. So, let us look into the main effect model. So, the main effect model says social support has a direct positive effect on well-being regardless of the stress level. So, main effect model says social support is positive all the time, it has a positive impact on well-being of people all the time, not necessarily only during stressful or crisis situations. Whether you are in a crisis situation, difficult situation, or you are in a normal situation, regardless of the situation, social support has a direct positive effect on the well-being of the people. So, what are the key features of this model? It says social support benefits individual at all times, not just during stressful situation. It enhances mental and physical health by providing companionships and a sense of belongingness, which is required in all the time of the situation, not just only in the crisis situation. People want to belong to a group, belong to a friend circle, whatever it is, and they also need companions and so on. So, by providing that, it kind of fulfills basic need of people and contributes positively to well-being. Social support encourages healthy behaviors like exercise, medical adherence and so on. So, many times when people are caring about you, they can kind of make a pressure on direct or indirect pressure in terms of engage in healthy behavior like exercise or taking medicine on time and so on. Many times we do not do these things on our own, but when our loved ones forces us to do such things, we keep doing them because our loved ones they are behind this motivation and so on. Social support also boosts self-esteem and emotional stability also in our life. So, these are the factors which are required in every aspects of our life, not just during crisis situation. So, social support provide all this. So, therefore, regardless of the situation, it has a positive and direct effect. So, just an example, a person with strong friendship experiences lower depression levels even when not facing major stressful, simply due to regular positive interactions. So, regular positive interactions with other people contributes to our emotions, our well-being and so on. Now, buffering model is the another model that says social supports protects individuals from the negative effect of stress, acting as a buffer. So, buffer is like it kinds of reduces the impact of something. So, we say the buffer our cars also have buffer spring, which basically it takes all the stress and all the whatever kind of stress that comes to the car, it absorbs all this stress, this buffer spring, and the people who are sitting inside the car, they do not get all the impact of the road and so on, because the buffer spring absorbs a lot of this. So, that is called the buffer system. So, social support is like a buffer system, it absorbs lot of stress problems of our life, and when it reaches us, the intensity decreases. So, that is the idea of buffering model. So, it protects individuals by providing a buffer system, where when you have loved ones or people supporting system around us, whatever problem comes, they will also absorb that. You are not alone. So, when the stress comes to you, it is of much lesser intensity, because other people also helps you to absorb all these things. So, they acts like a buffer system. So, the key feature of these models includes social support is most beneficial during high stress. It is generally beneficial, but it is most beneficial when there is a stressful situations in one's life. It mitigates stress by offering emotional comfort, provides practical help from other people, which is the source of stress. So, if the source of stress is, let us say, lack of let us say there is a financial problems that is causing stress. So, if somebody provides you that help, it directly removes the source of the stress. Reframing stressful situations, when you are in a difficult situation, people help you to look at the situation in a positive way. So, that reframing is also can be promoted by social support system. For example, a student under examination stress copes better if they receive encouragement from friends or parents, whereas without stress the same support may not have much noticeable impact. So, in the stressful situation the impact is much visible. So, that is called buffer model of the stress of social support and how it can be linked to well-being. Now, both the hypothesis or the model generally received support in the empirical literature. Social support has been found to predict better health among the people in high stress, such as chronic diseases, as well as among the people in general regardless of the stress. So, both the models has their validity and empirical support. Now, there are two other processes, Bolger and Zuckerman describe two other processes. how social support can interact with the stressful situations. One way of looking at it called the exposure process, that means social support reduce the frequency of the stressors. So, that is called exposure process. Second is called the reactivity process, it mitigates the emotional or physiological reaction to stress. So, the intensity decreases when you have social support system, your intensity of stress decreases because people take lot of this stress to them, it does not come directly to you or comes with a lesser intensity. And also when you have a better support system, your exposure to stress also decreases. Many stress you may not directly experience simply because other people around you will just mitigate that, you may not even experience it. So, the exposure says that frequency will also decrease and the reaction, the physiological reaction of the stress will also decrease. So, these are the two other ways social support can interact with the stressful situations. So, the social support can decrease the number of perceived stressors and help individuals cope more effectively, as we have already said. For example, just to give some examples of empirical evidence, one research found that the presence of friend, real or imagined, reduced the perceived difficulty of a task, while the other studies have shown that supportive relationship help individuals manage both major life events and daily hassles. So, these are like some of the support to these models. Social support also enhances self-efficacy and goal fulfillment, as demonstrated by studies by Brunstein and colleagues, who found that support predicts personal goal achievement, aligning with the many other models such as direct effect model. Now, let us look into another concept which is related to positive relationship, it is called capitalization. Let us look at it from the context of social relationships. Now, when we talk about capitalization, it is about sharing positive events with others to amplify their benefits. So, capitalization is about mostly when we share some positive things that has happened in our life, in order to when we share it, it actually amplifies, the positive impact becomes much higher. So, that is called capitalization. So, people have been also doing some research in that direction. And such things in terms of sharing positive things or positive events in one's life and it enhances the impact of it in one's life, positive impact of it can contribute to higher well-being and relationship quality and all the other aspects. So, this capitalization is a process of sharing positive personal experiences like achievements, good news and so on with others and receiving an enthusiastic supportive response. So, when you get a supportive response to some positive news when you share with other people, it amplifies that positive emotions. So, if you have a positive news, you may be happy, there is no doubt about it, but when you share with other people and they also respond positively, your positive aspects of the news or positive aspect of the event actually multiplies. That is called capitalization. This concept highlights that relationship can actually thrive when there is a capitalization involved in it also. So, positive event, lot of positive events occurs in our life, lot of negative things also happens in life. Maybe positive events, if you look at it, probably it is more in number. So, people often share this with other close people, and this sharing also plays very important role in terms of contributing to relationships, contributing to positive relationships and well-being and so on. Now, some of the key findings on capitalization that some of the research shows, people frequently share positive events with 70 to 80% of individuals reporting they share their best daily experiences with at least one person in their life. Most of the people share positive things with other people, at least one people. So, it's a very frequent thing. So, when people share such things, sharing positive events enhances positive emotions, well-being, self-esteem and reduces loneliness with greater benefits observed when events are shared with more people. So, that impact amplifies. So, it increases your positive emotions, well-being and so on. So, people generally say when we share our positive things, the positive aspects also actually multiplies. On the other hand, when we share negative things, the negative thing actually reduces. So, negative emotion reduces. So, sharing has a lot of positive impact in that say. When we face some negative things in our life and when we share it with other people, the negative things actually decreases because of the sharing and so on, but positive thing actually it increases when we share it with other people. So, this close relationship partners like friends, family, romantic partners are the primary recipient of this disclosure. 97% of the time we share our positive things with friends, family, partners and so on. Now, when we share something, particularly the positive news or events of one's life to other people, what kind of impact it will have on you depends on the other's response also, how the other person is responding to you. So, listener's response is very important. So, there could be 4 possible response according to literature, which is based on these 4 possible responses are actually now discussed based on something called as a perceived response to capitalization attempts as questionnaire, which talks about these 4 possible responses that people respond when they hear other people positive news and so on. One is called active constructive response. So, when you share your positive news to someone else, if one possibility is that the other person responds in an actively constructive ways. What does that mean? Is that the response is very enthusiastic, engaged response that validate and amplify the event. That person also becomes highly enthusiastic, positive and responds and validate what you are saying. For example, someone say that's amazing, tell me more about it. So, the person is engaged and enthusiastic about it. So, that is called active constructive response. Another possibility is called passive constructive response. Here the person is the response is very subdued. In case of active constructive, the person is very enthusiastic and very engaged. In case of passive constructive, the response is not negative, but the response is very subdued, not very enthusiastic. Somebody may say that is very nice, but not really engaged with your news. So, that is called passive constructive. Another possible response is called active destructive. In this case, the person is very negative and critical response. You share something positive or whatever it is, the news, and the person is actively, critical about response. So, person suddenly may say, so what's so great about it? You see there are other problems in it and so on, something like some negative things that will add to your positive news, and the positive news will the person will convert it into a negative things or something like that. So, that is called active destructive response. There can be another possibility called passive destructive. Here the person is ignoring or dismissing the event. The person is not at all responding to the positive news that you are sharing. So, there is an ignoring aspect to it, or sometimes completely dismissing the event, or the person will not even properly listen to what you are saying and change the subject to something else. So, that is called passive destructive. Now, depending on what kind of response the other person gives, the outcome will also change. For example, research shows that active constructive response where the person is enthusiastically listening and engaging with you is most strongly associated with increased relationship satisfaction, trust and intimacy, while passive or destructive response correlates with poorer relationship. So, passive or destructive responses, passive means you are not really enthusiastic about it, or destructive means you are just opposing it. So, in those cases obviously the relationship outcomes going to be not positive. Surprisingly, research shows passive constructive response, though seemingly benign, often predicts negative outcomes similar to destructive response. So, if you look at passive constructive response where the person was not actually negatively saying anything, but not very enthusiastic also, just passively responding something. Research shows that such responses are actually, it looks like they should not be harmful, but actually they predict very negative outcomes. Even though they are not showing anything negative as such, just because of the passive response, it leads to very negative impact on the person who is sharing the news, almost similar to the destructive one. So, destructive one and passive constructive, in terms of outcome, they are not much less, there is not much difference. So, active constructive responses convey perceived responsiveness. So, only when there is an active constructive response, we have this perceived responsiveness is much higher, you feel you have been understood by the person, you have been validated and cared and so on. So, it is one of the most important aspects in terms of positive relationships. This active constructive response amplify the importance of positive event for whoever is disclosing, enhancing its emotional impact. In contrast, passive or destructive response diminishes this benefit. So, whenever there is a passive or destructive response, it actually diminishes the positive impact of the event. Only active constructive response enhances it. So, whether sharing positive news with other people will have benefit or not depends on what kind of response other person is giving to you. So, a lot of these experimental and observational studies have showed this, that active constructive response enhance the feeling of responsiveness, while passive and destructive response undermines them. This perceived responsiveness during positive event disclosure predicts long term relationship quality, unlike responsiveness during negative event discussions and so on. So, basically when we talk about capitalization, it is a powerful interpersonal process that can enhance individuals' well-being and relationship quality, provided you get the right kind of response, active, constructive. But much more research is needed in this area in order to understand the more subtle aspects to it. Another thing that also can contribute to positive relationship is called gratitude, which can play some very important role in close relationship. We have already talked about gratitude in detail in the earlier module, in one of the earlier modules, where we looked at how gratitude is significant in terms of enhancing well-being of the person. Now, here we will be focusing on that it has obviously there is a lot of positive impact on the person itself, but it can also play a very important role in the relationship aspects also. So, the recent research on gratitude in close relationship is basically focusing on its interpersonal aspects, how it plays very important role. So, grounded in social functional model of emotions, the researcher like Elgoi and colleagues found that gratitude plays a critical role in relationship formation and maintenance. Their work highlights how gratitude fosters connection and strengthens bonds between individuals. A lot of research actually indicates that gratitude enhances connection between peoples and strengthens the bond between peoples. So, when we talk about gratitude, we are talking about it's a feeling of thankfulness or feeling of looking at things for which you can be grateful in one's life. We have discussed in the details of the concepts about gratitude in the earlier module, so I will not repeat here. We are just looking at the research finding in the context of relationships. So, some of the key findings that gratitude plays a very important function in terms of relational aspects. So, gratitude helps individuals notice positive qualities in their benefactors and increase their willingness to engage with them in the future. Whenever you feel grateful to something, the people become much more open and they notice positive qualities also, because you cannot experience gratitude when you have negative attitude towards someone. So, a lot of this positive qualities and other things, one people notices them about other people, which increases the willingness and engagement with people in the future also. For example, participants in recalling gratitude evoking events were more likely to report noticing new positive traits in their benefactor and express greater interest in the spending time with them compared to those recalling happiness evoking event. The experiments with gratitude, where the gratitude has been manipulated, also shows that people notice more positive traits of people when the gratitude is evoked in experimental situations. Now, perceived responsiveness is another thing where gratitude can play an important role. Gratitude is strongly tied to perceived responsiveness, feeling understood, validated and cared for by the benefactor. So, it can play a very important role in all these aspects, which plays very important role in positive relationships. For example, in a study of sorority gift giving, new members who perceived their gifts as responsive reported higher levels of gratitude, which in turn predicted greater future closeness and liking to the benefactor and so on. So, these are some of the empirical studies that shows clearly the benefit of experiencing gratitude in a relationship context and how it promotes bonding and well-being and so on. Another aspect to it is that something called as a find, remind and bind. Elgoi and colleagues propose that gratitude functions includes finding, means noticing positive qualities in other, reminding means reinforcing the value of the relationship, and binding, strengthening the relationship of the bonds. So, it does all these three important functions, which are key ingredient in a relationship, positive relationship. So, this process underscores gratitude's role in fostering relationship growth and stability. So, this is in a very in a nutshell, we are talking about how gratitude can be a significant aspect in positive relationships. I will not go into too much details of this, because the gratitude has already been explored in much detail in the one of the earlier modules. Now, another thing which is very important, that can play a very important role in the relationship context, is the concept of love. Here also I will not go into too much details of it, but some of the very briefly talk about some of the research finding, that why it is so important in the context of positive relationships. So, it is a when you talk about love, it has so many aspects to it, so many dimensions, we cannot go into all the aspects to it. So, it is a central theme in human behavior. And it has been explored by poets, philosophers, playwrights, and psychologists are also empirically trying to look at it in recent times with scientific evidences and so on. So, a lot of psychological work by John Bowlby, Harry Harlow also showed the importance of love, attachment and caregiving in the context of health and well-being. So, some of these things also we have discussed earlier. Now, when we talk about love in psychological literature, there are two primary forms of love has been discussed. One is called passionate love, another is called companionate love. So, this is like two broad categories that are discussed in the context of love and their impacts. So, when we talk about passionate love, it is mostly characterized by intense excitement, attraction and euphoria. So, passionate love is associated with early stages of relationship, mostly in the initial stage. The nature of love is mostly like passionate love, which is more excitement, attraction, euphoric experiences and so on. Now, evolutionary, this is very important, because this helps people to connect and kind of and initiate relationship and so on. So, evolutionary it serves certain functions by fostering attractions and relationship initiation, often leading to changes in self concept and esteem. So, it is evolutionary, it helps people to connect and initiate relationship. So, this plays very important role in the context of evolution. Neuroimaging studies also shows that passionate love activates rewards and motivation system in the brain. So, it plays very important role in terms of it gives you a lot of, in terms of experientially gives you a lot of reward and motivates people to connect with other people. Now, when we talk about companionate love, it is mostly we are talking about in terms of affection, bonding, intimacy. Companionate love is central to long term relationship maintenance and satisfaction. So, relationship in the initial stage it may be passionate love, but in a long term context it is mostly of a companionate love, where focus is on bonding, intimacy, long term factors which leads to long term relationships and so on. So, it is about defining features of communal relationships, where partners mutually respond to each other's needs and so on, which leads to long term maintenance of relationship and so on. So, it also serves an evolutionary function by promoting commitment and long term bonding, offering evolutionary benefits through sustained partnerships and propagation of species and so on. Companionate love is highly predictive of relationship stability and satisfaction. So, this is much more important in terms of long term relationships. If this nature of love, if it is associated with companionate aspect of love, where the focus is on bonding, affection, intimacy and there is a long term stability in it and so on. Because love itself is a very complex subject, I will not go into too much detail here. This is just to discuss in the context of that in terms of positive relationship, this is very important aspects. Both passionate and companionate love kind of makes our relationship much more positive and gives stability and enhances well-being in our relationship context. So, these are some of the things or ingredients or factors or facilitators which promotes positive relationships. So, we will talk about some of the other aspects in the next lecture. With this, I stop here. Thank you.